The tampon king gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps.
But I think that, but I can't get past the core fact about Walz, which is he presided over, allowed the biggest city in the state to get burned down.
And seemed to not only allow it, but kind of
he liked it.
Support it, you know?
Well, yeah, did you see the video of his wife saying, I kept the windows open so I could smell the burning rubber from the riots?
I did not see that.
The wife whose hand he shook.
Oh my God. By the way, I mean, I know it's picking on a little thing, but who the hell shakes their wife's...
What does it suggest when a public figure greets his spouse of 3 decades with a stiff, formal handshake in front of cameras? For Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, that visibly awkward moment quickly spread online and became more than just an uncomfortable clip. It started to feel symbolic. Walz has carefully crafted a public image built around Minnesota nice, presenting himself as steady, polite, and non-threatening to a fault. His brand relies on calm reassurance, a sort of soft-spoken confidence that avoids confrontation. But when commentators like Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson began examining that image more closely, cracks appeared. What emerged wasn't a leader firmly in control, but someone overseeing growing problems while maintaining a practiced smile. The handshake moment didn't feel random. To critics, it looked like a brief lapse in a carefully managed performance, exposing a gap between the public persona and the private reality. In a political world filled with choreographed warmth, that cold, procedural gesture stood out. It felt less like an odd habit and more like an unintended glimpse behind the curtain.
Politico lingers on candidates' fingers and defend Walz's wide eyes as they claim beards are for bad guys. Tyler, speaking of beards, and I mean the one on your face, not the one that you hang out with.
Let me just say that Walz and every other governor who did anything like that is a monster, and I think on some level he will be punished for it. But no, I admire what you did enough that I hope I'd be man enough to do it myself. I took minor risks during COVID by pointing out things that seemed true to me, but I didn't do anything that heroic. I think it's absolutely essential. Clearly, we're moving toward an authoritarian state. I think we've already arrived. I think your life is a testament to that.
Wait, you lost because you weren't woke enough? That's like telling Joy Behar she's not eating enough Doritos. That's like Jasmine Crockett saying, I gotta black this up. That's like Bud Light saying, hey, you know what? We could use more Dylan Mulvaney.
That carefully maintained image faced its most serious test in 2020, when Minneapolis descended into chaos during widespread unrest. For Governor Walz, it was a defining moment, and critics argue it became a major failure. For days, fires spread, businesses were destroyed, and the 3rd Precinct police station was abandoned as crowds surged through the area. The scenes were shocking, yet Walz's response struck many as slow and distant. Gutfeld went further, suggesting the governor didn't merely mismanage the crisis, but appeared unusually tolerant of the destruction. It was a provocative claim, framing Walz as someone who viewed the unrest not solely as tragedy, but as part of a broader political moment. That perception intensified after comments attributed to Walz's wife surfaced, in which she allegedly remarked about keeping windows open to smell burning rubber during the riots. Whether poorly worded humor or genuine sentiment, critics seized on it as evidence of detachment. 2 leaders, safe at home, seemingly removed from the fear gripping the city. The consequences lingered long after the fires were extinguished. Minneapolis reportedly saw a massive departure of police officers, with many citing a lack of support from leadership. For critics, that period marked the beginning of a deeper public safety breakdown under a governor they believe prioritized political approval over immediate responsibility.
Hey, so Trump is making it more difficult for women to vote? How so? Math problems? But it's further proof that the most dangerous thing for a leftist is a follow-up question, which is why you never hear any. But I guess questioning elections is okay now. But the best moment came when Walz forgot who he is.
Who is Tim Walz exactly?
It started sort of with picking up on just these little lies he would tell. He never was a command sergeant major, despite the fact him, saying that he was. He never attained this rank in the military. Instead, he abandoned his troops and they were deployed to Iraq without him, and he ran for Congress. So I've always felt as a reporter, if someone lies about little things, they're lying about big things.
That's a principle that stands the test of time.
And Minnesota has become, the home of this defund the police movement. It was on the ballot. Minneapolis did not vote to defund the police, but I would say in every way, shape, or form, they defunded the police. You have the Minneapolis Police Department that's lost about 40% of their cops since George Floyd. But instead of being
Minneapolis lost 40% of its cops in 5 years?
Nearly half.
As Minneapolis was still recovering, critics argue another crisis unfolded, this time centered on Minnesota's economy during the pandemic. Walz's leadership style shifted from passive to forceful, and many business owners felt the impact immediately. Detractors claimed his approach resembled rigid enforcement rather than balanced governance. Small businesses were ordered to close under strict rules, often with little flexibility. One widely cited case involved a grandmother who reopened her small business as an act of protest and was subsequently jailed, a story supporters point to as emblematic of excessive enforcement. Meanwhile, large retail chains remained open, creating what critics described as an unfair double standard. Churches were closed while liquor stores were deemed essential, further fueling frustration. To skeptics, this didn't look like neutral, science-driven policy. It appeared selective and political. Tucker Carlson framed the situation as an example of top-down control, where citizens were told when they could work, gather, or worship. In that telling, the issue wasn't public health alone, but the expansion of government authority delivered with unwavering certainty. Critics argue livelihoods were damaged in the name of safety, with little accountability for the consequences.
So I'm the law-abiding grandma that was sentenced to 90 days in jail for opening my business during the shutdowns as a peaceful protest when Minnesota Governor Tim Walz unconstitutionally and illegally shut our businesses down. So my question is, if you were in my situation, would you have done the same thing? Or what would you have done?
Well, I flatter myself by imagining I would have done the same thing, because I think what you did is honorable and necessary.
Dude, you're an old white guy. And you're right, you are a huge disappointment. I guess hating himself is the first thing he's nailed correctly. Because Walz saying old white men suck isn't a political stance, it's his confession. Walz calling people old and white is like Maxine Waters making fun of someone for shopping at Wigs R Us.
Questions surrounding Walz's leadership extend beyond his time as governor, reaching back into the story that helped launch his political career. For years, he was introduced as a command sergeant major, a highly respected military rank that carries significant credibility. That designation became central to his public identity, reinforcing an image of discipline and leadership. Critics, however, have raised concerns about whether that title accurately reflected his service record. While Walz served more than 2 decades in the National Guard, some reporting has questioned whether he officially attained that rank. To his critics, this wasn't a minor clerical error but an exaggeration that went uncorrected because it played well politically. Additional scrutiny followed claims that Walz left his unit to pursue a congressional run shortly before deployment overseas. Detractors argue that decision reflects misplaced priorities, choosing ambition over obligation. Tucker Carlson framed the controversy as less about technical details and more about trust. If a politician is willing to blur the facts of his own background, critics ask, how reliable is he on larger issues? In that framing, the rank dispute symbolizes a broader concern about image building outweighing transparency.
5 years ago this summer, George Floyd, a convicted felon, OD'd on fentanyl outside a convenience store in Minneapolis, and the country changed forever. 5 years later, Tim Walz is still the governor. Keith Ellison is still the attorney general. The cops who were falsely convicted of murdering George Floyd are mostly still in prison. But what happened to Minneapolis itself? Well, it's been wrecked. And no one has said a word about it. But I just wonder about this story in particular. Did he have contact with Walz? Do we know that Walz said, I met this guy ever?
Well, this is what's interesting. We know that he served on a board appointed by Walz. However, I'll say that...
what kind of board was it?
It was a workforce development board.
Critics also argue that Walz's policy priorities had lasting effects on Minnesota's education system. While his administration emphasized equity and inclusion, detractors claim academic performance suffered. Reports of declining reading and math scores became central to the criticism. Commentators like Greg Gutfeld mocked what they saw as a shift away from rigorous standards, joking that correctness had replaced correctness. Beneath the humor lies a serious charge, that classrooms became arenas for ideological experimentation rather than academic excellence. Critics argue the focus shifted from measurable achievement to managing outcomes, even if that meant lowering expectations. In their view, this approach discouraged excellence in favor of avoiding discomfort. Adding to the controversy, critics highlight personal choices that struck them as symbolically troubling. Walz and his wife were married on the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, a date associated with one of the most iconic images of state repression. Critics question whether this was coincidence, ignorance, or poor judgment. The fact that the couple reportedly honeymooned in China only intensified that scrutiny. To detractors, the symbolism felt unsettling, suggesting a tone deafness toward historical meaning and authoritarian imagery.
Are people misreading Tim's odd greeting? The man of the hour, Tim Walz, brings us our second video of the day, and he's got a very weird way of greeting his wife of 30 years. Roll it.
His wedding anniversary, they were married 5 years after Tiananmen Square, and he picked that date because it was a date that they would remember, he and his wife.
What?
Who does that?
Tiananmen Square?
Correct.
The tank crushing the lone protester? That's
their wedding anniversary. And they went to China for their honeymoon.
Come on. You're sure he picked the anniversary?
They've talked about this
in
interviews. Yeah, this is in newspapers.
But Tiananmen Square was a massacre of peaceful protesters.
I know.
Do you think they picked it to in the memory of those brave souls who died opposing the machine?
They haven't said that.
Oh my.
All of this made Walz a prime target for a two-pronged critique from Greg Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson, each approaching from different angles. Gutfeld used humor and sarcasm, turning Walz's statements and gestures into punchlines meant to highlight perceived absurdities. He focused on moments where Walz appeared awkward or overly eager to align himself with progressive trends, including self-deprecating remarks about his identity. Gutfeld's comedy framed Walz as someone desperate for approval rather than conviction. Carlson, by contrast, took a measured, analytical approach. He portrayed Walz not as a villain, but as a bureaucratic figure enforcing unpopular policies with a smile. In Carlson's telling, Walz represents a form of soft authoritarianism, polite in tone, strict in execution. The danger, he argued, lies not in malice but in compliance with a failing political consensus that produces real-world consequences for ordinary people.
One of them, Politico says, is Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is his wide eyes. That humans would widen their eyes to convey that danger is close. What emotion are you getting from that? Sorry. That was it.
Beyond cultural and social debates, critics contend Walz's policies strained Minnesota's economy. They describe his administration as increasingly unfriendly to business growth, citing rising taxes, expanding regulations, and uncertainty that drove employers elsewhere. His commitment to aggressive green energy initiatives became a focal point of criticism. Detractors argue these plans prioritize symbolism over reliability, placing pressure on energy systems without ensuring stability. While Walz emphasized sustainability, critics say the policies themselves were economically unsustainable, leading to higher costs for residents. When problems emerged, they argue responsibility was often redirected rather than addressed. In the end, This critique presents Walz not just as a political opponent, but as a case study in modern leadership failure. Gutfeld supplied the humor, Carlson delivered the methodical breakdown, and Walz's own record provided the material. In this telling, he embodies a leadership style that wraps flawed governance in reassuring language. And when the debate settles, critics argue he won't be remembered as a steady guide through crisis, but as a cautionary example of how polished messaging can't compensate for outcomes.